I now invite the Assembly to view the pre-recorded statement by the eminent high-level champion of gender equality, Ms. Nomzamo Mbatha.
Thank you, Secretary General and President of the General Assembly. Good morning to all dignitaries present. I'm proud to be speaking today as a champion of gender equality and a Goodwill ambassador for UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. 25 years ago, in Beijing, China, the world made a promise: equal rights and opportunities for women and girls everywhere. 25 years later, the Beijing Platform for Action remains a cornerstone of the UN's work to uphold the rights of women and girls, including women and girls who have been forced to flee their homes because of violence, conflict, or persecution. Member states reiterated their commitment when they affirmed the Global Compact on Refugees, which calls on all stakeholders to empower women and girls in refugee camps as well as host communities. But the world still has a far long way to go to achieve gender equality. And to quote the UN Secretary General, it is the biggest human rights challenge in the world. At the end of 2019, an unprecedented 79.5 million people had been forced to flee their homes because of conflict, persecution, and violence. More than half of them are women and girls, many at risk of discrimination, violence, child marriage, and lack of access to quality education. With my engagement with the UNHCR, I have had the opportunity to meet with forcibly displaced women and girls in refugee camps and informal settlements. In all my interactions and meetings with these women and girls who have been forced to flee, I have been continuously inspired by their resilience, courage, and hope. I remember in my very first visit to a refugee camp in Dzaleka, Malawi, I met a young girl. She was 16 at the time, and I asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up. And she said, "I want to be a doctor." Because every single morning she would see her father put on that white coat and get ready to serve humanity. I was moved by her passion and, of course, her conviction. Growing up in her country, there was no doubt in her young mind that she too could be a doctor, just like her father. She felt empowered to dream. But when war broke out, they were forced to flee their home. And so she started questioning that very dream. How could she, a refugee girl living in a refugee camp in the smallest corner of the world, have that dream now? Access to education for refugees is critical. Currently, only 3% of refugees worldwide have access to higher education. Moreover, while COVID-19 related school closures have affected students globally, refugee girls suffer disproportionately. Based on the UNHCR data, the Malala Fund has estimated that as a result of COVID-19, half of all refugee girls in secondary schools will not return when classrooms reopen. 1 in 3 women have been subjected to gender-based violence worldwide, and this includes displaced women and girls. COVID-19 is exacerbating inequality for so many young girls, and of course, the LGBTQI community. Because of the social and economic impacts of the pandemic, many displaced women and girls are also at increased risk of being forced into survival sex and early child marriage by their families. But forcibly displaced women are agents of change, challenging the status quo, fighting for girls' rights, and of course using their voices to demand equality. Gender equality is fundamental to every aspect of UNHCR's work, working with and for refugee women and girls towards their equal participation in society and leadership in all decisions that affect their lives, particularly economic empowerment. Prioritizing the safety and security of refugees and displaced women and girls and all those at risk, and calling for an end to gender-based violence. We have a collective responsibility to accelerate global action to realize women's rights for an equal future, as there can be no equal future without the full and equal participation of all women and girls everywhere. And this is the generation to accomplish that. Thank you.
I thank Ms. Mbatha for her statement.